just by way of introduction, even though he needs no introduction, we're talking with André today. He's the MAVA president. He took over as president of MAVA in 2010 from his father, our founder, Dr. Luc Hoffmann. He is the vice chair of Roche Pharmaceuticals, the business that was started by his grandfather, and he sits on many different boards and advisory councils, both private and nonprofit sectors. And just to name a few of the latter category, he's the president of the Tour du Valais. He's the chair of the Capitals Coalition. He's a member of the advisory board for the Cambridge Conservation Initiative, the Luc Hoffmann Institute, and many others. I won't go through the whole list or we won't have time for anything else. André, if you're ready, let's get going. I'd just like to start by asking you, where does your passion from nature come from?
Thank you very much, Lina, for this incredibly elogious starting. I mean, I feel a little bit of a, I know most of you have read comics, and one of the comics that we like in France is Astérix. And Astérix has a friend called Obélix, who is a big fat guy, and he fell into the potion magique when he was a young boy. And that's why he's strong. I fell into conservation. I fell into the love of nature because my father introduced that to us. And so for me, it was always a little bit of an absolute obvious thing to do. So it's not a question of loving nature. It's not a question of just thinking it's beautiful, which it is, or culturally important. It's also clearly the life support system on Earth. We cannot expect having a happy humanity without a nature that functions. And therefore, this notion of trying to separate it as a hobby or separate it as a passion or trying to distinguish it or describe it as being something that one likes is, I think, completely irrelevant. We all depend on nature. Nature is our mother. Without going into something too esoteric, without nature, there is no life on Earth. And therefore, we need to make sure that we preserve it, not only for the sake of it, but also for our own sake. So I will send the question back and I will say, no, it's not passion. It's very logical thinking that convinces me that we need to do everything we can to protect nature. I was incredibly lucky to be born into a family which always valued nature at a very high level. In fact, I even grew up in a nature reserve in the Camargue, at the Tour du Valais you just mentioned. But I also was born in a family controlling a big company, in fact, the largest pharmaceutical company on the planet now. And that gave me, at an early stage, an opportunity to look at different types of issues, but all of them centered around humanity. I mean, we're talking about patients, or we're talking about visitors on the planet, but we are all part of the same humanity. And therefore, taking interest for one is very difficult to do without taking interest for the other.